All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Finally got the audio to work. Sorry about last time we had some issues with the streaming software, but we should be good to go now. And I will be here uh, for the time being while we get more people in this live stream. I will be going through sort of my past, my history with rental arbitrage and with Airbnb, and hopefully you guys get a lot of value out of this live stream. It will be live, so you guys can just ask questions in the chat, and I will be answering them as you ask them. Hopefully this will keep you guys engaged. But this live stream is about renting to rent. So this sounds, it's like subleasing, but in a way, this is a totally new approach that wasn't possible before Airbnb and other short-term rental platforms came around. And what I want to get into today is I guess I want to dive deep into how I was able to sustain my profitability through a pandemic, which is remarkable. This really enforced my approach and it enforced the business model for me a lot, just simply because I was able to see that this business works through various different market situations and even unforeseen circumstances like a pandemic, where it's like a black swan event. A lot of people didn't make a lot of money. Like a lot of people actually lost money through this pandemic. Most businesses actually lost money, and the fact that I was able to turn a profit is just an amazing positive affirmation for me moving forward. So I'm glad I got into this business model. I'm glad I invested my money here, and I'm going to continue to do this. And what I really want to get to today, I guess the juiciness of today's live stream will be my strategic approach to adapting for certain market situations. Now, I've learned this now more than ever through the past couple of months, adjusting my pricing and simply adapting and reacting quickly in an unforeseen circumstance. And it has proved to be very profitable and very, I guess, it just kept us afloat. So ultimately, I see more people are getting in the chat. So if you can just say something, drop a like, drop a comment. We'd like to have the audience very engaged throughout this whole thing, simply because that will help you get as much value from this as possible. So like I said, I started doing this venture. I started getting into this business model in 2018. So it was August 2018, I signed my first lease, and then I posted the property on Airbnb. I listed it. I did everything I needed to do, and we instantly started getting bookings. We instantly started getting traction, and from there, I kind of just went with it, and I learned as much as I could in my first year. I wasn't very adamant to scale right away. I wanted to make sure I had all of the odds and ends figured out. I wanted to make sure I had everything figured out in my own way, because like everyone understands things differently, everyone absorbs information differently. And so that first year was really just a year for me to learn everything I needed to learn about the company, about the software, about how the booking process works, on how I can automate certain aspects of the business. And what I want to get to here is that this venture and this opportunity is better than passive. As you guys are now watching, we're on the channel Better Than Passive. This is a system that you're building that will work for you until you stop it. I mean, that's literally how it works. The demand for this is so high that once your system is in place and once you've done everything accordingly, you are in a position that you will always have customers. And a lot of this has to do with the market research, and then a lot of this has to do with location. But for the most part, I'd say that the accommodation space and the hospitality industry is so big, and there's such a large demand for what you are offering and what you're providing, that it's hard to miss, and it's hard to actually lose money doing this. And I'll get into that in this live stream here, how I adapted and how I reduced my rates and all that stuff. But for the most part, getting into this has been the single-handedly best investment and decision that I've ever made. And I'm here to share that with you today. So hopefully you get a lot of value from this. We currently have 9 people in the live right now. Welcome if you're just joining. So the title of this video is How I Survived the Pandemic. And I want to say that these past couple of months, I've learned more than I have in my entire experience doing this. And that is because we've been faced with this massive obstacle, this massive black swan event. And I've been able to, instead of backing out and instead of quitting and dropping everything, I just reacted very quickly, and it was the right decision to make. I know, my YouTube subscribers, I've been engaging with them in the comments, and a lot of my YouTube subscribers have actually thrown in the towel. They've quit. They said that they can't afford to do rental arbitrage anymore. And that's unfortunate to hear. And I want to say that a big part of my survival had to do with where I'm located. So if you are watching this and you're actually not in a big city, if you're watching this and you're in a market where the population is maybe 300,000 people, 500,000 people, I know there's a ton of these little pockets in the United States, then you actually are positioned to scale quicker, and you have the opportunity to go in there and take that market share from hosts who aren't performing as well, or hosts who aren't as strategic as you can be, by just learning and doing certain things and having certain protocols in place that will improve the way that you operate. So just get to it. And the way that this worked is we looked at the market average nightly rent. So with short-term rentals, you can usually triple the amount of money that you're spending on the rent. This is because, let's say you're renting the property and it costs you $30 out of pocket as your fixed cost, as your hard cost, including your expenses. You can then ask $100 a night on that same property, and that is where the profit margin is at, and that's where you can make a lot of money long-term renting and then going around and turning around and then furnishing the property and then short-term leasing it to short-term guests. And we now have a lot of great platforms that allow you to do this effortlessly. They take care of payment processing. They take care of just the calendar management. A few that I use right now, Booking.com, Airbnb is the biggest one, and it's my favorite because their software is so great to use, and the way they've set themselves up, it is the most user-friendly software. So Booking.com is a good one. This is an OTA. This is not necessarily like a booking platform, but they have hotels on their platform. They have a lot of different travel agency related things that they do, but they also allow you to now list your property on their website. So Booking.com is our second highest producing website. And then, of course, there's HomeAway. TripAdvisor now has some form of short-term rental accommodation that they, I don't know, I've only had one booking from TripAdvisor, and it really hasn't been a great experience. But getting into this, you have a lot of resources and a lot of tools at your disposal that you can now use, whereas before Airbnb was invented and before all these other companies were invented, you maybe had to use Craigslist to market and maybe some form of, I don't know, like newspaper marketing for these short-term rental guests, which the demand has always been there. And the way I look at this is the demand is there because every human being needs to sleep. And therefore, if you think about it like that, like, you're never going to run out of a customer, never going to run out of a client. 5-star Waste, thank you for the comment. Great information. So getting into this, I was able to adapt and just reduce my rate. So I was saying earlier that I was looking at what people were asking, and obviously, this information surfaced very quickly on blogs, on forums, on other YouTube influencers in the Airbnb space. They were talking about reducing your rates, and so this is the first thing I did. I reduced my rates by 50%. So if I was asking 80 a night, I was asking 40 a night, 41 a night, 43 a night. I dropped the rates by 50% right on the first day that Trump announced a travel ban. This was like March 14th, I believe. And then everything kind of spiraled out of control after that. The economy tanked, the S&P and the Dow crashed, and everyone was just terrified. There was a lot of fear in the air. I personally didn't know if this pandemic was going to kill everybody or if, whatever. Obviously, the deaths and the spread of it wasn't as, I guess, as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting like people I knew and loved ones that I knew to die and stuff. So it was honestly quite frightening time, but we got through it by shifting gears in the way that you're able to do with this opportunity. So other businesses, on the other hand, let's say a brick and mortar or a restaurant, they weren't able to do this because the government shut them down. They said you're a non-essential business, you're high risk for COVID exposure, and therefore you can't operate for the next month, 2 months, however long. I know other markets, I know Los Angeles had a really long restriction. I don't even know if they've lifted that yet, but where I'm from in Springfield, Missouri, the regulations for this and the restrictions were very light. Nobody ever told me I could not operate short-term rentals. So right off the bat, I had the advantage because my business wasn't necessarily deemed non-essential. So I was able to turn revenue while other businesses were completely halted. They couldn't even make $1 in revenue. So that right there is one of the things that I really took advantage of, and I noticed a lot of the hotels were also told to shut down and close, so they couldn't operate. So that left a lot of demand. I think the demand, the supply was decreased because the hotels were no longer able to rent out nights. And I know some hotels in my area still rented out nights. There was no issue, but for the most part, hosts threw in the towel. Hosts quit hosting. I know there was a bunch of articles that surfaced. And how this was a bargain with the devil because now hosts were over leveraged. They had a lot of exposure and they had mortgages that they had to pay, but they couldn't even cover their bills because people stopped traveling altogether. So the first thing that I really did to adapt, I got on a Furnish Finder, which I sort of knew about Furnish Finder before COVID hit, but once I got on a Furnish Finder, I immediately locked in a 3-month long, booking. I converted them from Furnish Finder to Airbnb. So we contacted them. They were looking for a place to stay. It was a respiratory therapist who was traveling and he needed a place to stay in Springfield. And of course, all of my units they're very nice. I would say that they're on the higher end of what I invested to get them looking above the market average of what you find in Springfield. So my units were already looking a lot better than the competition. Just the aesthetic of it, the interior design, it stood out, it popped, it was colorful. And we have, great pillows, beds, bedding, everything like that. Like everything we have is super comfortable. The feedback we've ever gotten has been just like really good regarding the people's experience in our unit. So Furnish Finder, we converted a respiratory therapist for 3 months, and every single month, I think this respiratory therapist booked our place. We were $400 of profit on our expenses. So he booked at like $1,300 a month, I believe, and our expenses are, $700 to $800. I don't know the exact calculation right now off the top of my head, but right there we had our first 3 month. It was a $3,400 booking. It was amazing, and that right there was incredible because it happened instantly. I think it happened the week that everything kind of fell apart, and we had all the cancellations. All the guests were leaving and canceling the reservations because events got shut down, and there was just no reason to travel. We had a huge basketball tournament that was it was supposed to happen in March, and we literally every single one of our units in Springfield had people coming to that basketball tournament from all around the country. We had people from Nebraska, from Kansas, from Minnesota, just everywhere. Texas, we had people coming to Springfield for this event from everywhere. And like we had a really solid projection for revenue, and every single one of those reservations, they all canceled. They got 100% refunds. We got $5,000 wiped off the calendar within 2 days. It was quite a frightening experience. I did panic for a split second. It was just a moment. One night I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, wow, this does not look good. Hopefully this does not last. Like hopefully this is just a short-lived thing. And that's when I started looking into my options. I didn't necessarily, I didn't use that fear and that panic to push me in a position where I had to back out or quit. I was very adamant that, this idea, I've stuck with it for so long. I've been in it for almost 2 years now, and I can't just quit. I can't just stop doing what I'm doing. This is my passion. This is my purpose. And I encourage each of you to find your passion and purpose on earth, because you wake up every day with a positive attitude, with a smile on your face, even though things don't go your way. So at the end of the day, I weighed out the pros and cons, and I was definitely in a position where I could adapt, and that's exactly what I did. So Furnish Finder provided me with my first respiratory therapist booking, and that was pretty easy. We just got on the phone and we made him an Airbnb account. The individual who actually booked, he never used Airbnb, but we decided to just convert him over. It's the easiest way to deal with the payment processing and all that, and that way. One of the units was a green check mark for the next, and this guest is actually still in one of our units, so he's still here. He's I think he has one more month, and then he's out. Super amazing, I guess, situation that could have happened. And then we had a travel nurse book for about a month, I think a month and a half. So right away we started getting these longer bookings. These were no longer the 2-night bookings, the 3-night bookings that we were usually getting. These were long-term traveling professionals, and in my opinion, this is the best type of client you could have in your property. I know there's an entire market based around, 30 days or longer furnished apartments, like furnished spaces. Zeus is a company that actually specializes in this, and they've gotten funding, and then they're just playing in this a market where they only accommodate for 30 days or longer with a furnished apartment. So we got a little bit of a taste of that market, and so far I'd say that it's been really good. I think 3 of our units right off the bat were able to get filled with long-term tenants. I mean, these were people paying above the market average for a furnished apartment in our area, because surprisingly there's not very many furnished apartments in Springfield. I think we're the only ones actually, or the furnished like accommodation, and we've been able to market ourselves really well to pick up that clientele. We've also had people traveling for construction jobs, just little odd and end things. And I've noticed that dropping the rates to that $40, just that 50% reduction in price attracted longer bookings. And this is what I saw right away. And at the end of all of this, all said and done, I've realized even through a booming bull market and like a booming economy, there's something to having more nights booked at a lower rate that actually increases the amount of profit that you can make. This is something that I've just now figured out and I've calculated, and it's been, a struggle at first, kind of trying to figure out the sweet spot and like that certain price point that you can use to have, I guess, the best performance in your listings. And I want to say this right now, like our best occupancy month that we've seen, occupancy wise, just nights booked out of the month, was the month of April. It was just insane. We had like 90% occupancy, and this is our first time reaching that type of numbers, right? In my market, I was usually averaging 80 to 85% a month, and we topped all that off by just reducing the rate. And at the end of the day, I'm just happy right now because we're able to cover our costs. We're able to cover everything that, I guess utility bills, internet bills, odd and end expenses like miscellaneous costs, like, just little random things that pop up, like a comforter gets damaged or, something gets misplaced or stolen or lost. We were able to cover all of those expenses and still make a profit through a pandemic. And that right there enforces this business model for me. And if you're looking to get started, just doing this as maybe like a side hustle, or looking to get into this as maybe like you want to replace your full-time income, this is definitely a system that you can build properly, and it will get you there with a solid demand. I mean, there's no question that the demand is there. It's just a matter of positioning yourself to be in front of that demand and to be able to take those transactions and be able to get $3,800 bookings and accommodate a traveling professional for multiple months at a time. That to me is a very positive thing, because I'm helping somebody out and I know that I'm giving them a quality place. And it all works out in that way when you latch onto your passion and purpose. So getting into all this, we've been able to maintain profit. This month is looking really good as well. And I know this is the month that everything's supposed to be opening back up. We're very confident with the projections for the rest of the year. And I don't know if you saw from the thumbnail this year, I have 2 Airbnb accounts, and one of them has done 10,000, and this has 2 listings on it, and the other one has done 44,000 now, and this has 7 listings on it. So between 9 properties, we've already cleared 55,000 in revenue, and we had probably the most, I guess, critical and detrimental thing for business that's happened this year, and we've still been able to generate revenue throughout all of this whole process. So that being said, I hope this little spiel enforces your, I guess, approach, and you take that step, you take that leap of faith, and that just, you have more confidence knowing that you can get through certain situations. Now, obviously, I don't want to say that this is a pandemic-proof business model, because at the end of the day, like, what is a pandemic? I mean, nobody has been able to, I guess, see this coming in a way that, it's just a black swan event. And therefore, recessions, I know that throughout this whole thing, I've learned a lot, and I've seen Sonder, they have like a recession clause in their leases. This is something that I'm going to be incorporating in every single lease moving forward. I want to make sure that I'm protected as well. So I know that the Dow dropped the other day. They dropped 1,800 points, and that means that Sonder just got 1 month free on all their rents, at least the rents that they have recession clauses negotiated into. So there's a lot of things that you can look into. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to ask them. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And we're going to get into the next step of this live stream, and that's like the fastest way to scale if you're just starting out. And this right here is what's helped me to scale, blow past 5 units. Now I actually have 5 units in the pipeline right now. June 15th, I'm supposed to be signing for 5 units. This is something that I will talk about in this live stream. Be sure to ask questions, guys. I really want to make sure this is valuable for you. Let's get into that. I'm going to get into the fastest way to scale, and it doesn't necessarily require a lot of capital, which is contrary to what you might believe or what you might have heard about rental arbitrage. Reason being is you can negotiate months free of rent. So off the front end, if you're in a situation where you want to pick up multiple units, you can easily go to the leasing agent or the property owner. Let's say if it's an apartment complex, or if it's a multifamily homeowner who has a bigger portfolio, you can say, hey, look, I want to rent 3 of your properties, and I need 2 months rent free on the front end. And this may seem like a big ask. You may think to yourself, who in the right mind would lease to me 2 months rent free? But you never know unless you try. You never learn unless you ask. So it's the simple power of just asking and knowing that you can negotiate. I had a real estate attorney tell me that everything on a real estate contract is negotiable, everything. And that really, I guess, stuck with me and has helped me grow my Airbnb portfolio and what I manage, knowing that I can go in and just remove some clauses, add clauses, and you have to stick firm to what you believe in and what you're doing, and don't be discouraged if they say no or they don't want to do that. And some management companies aren't going to work with you in that sense, but you just have to keep moving forward, keep pushing. You got to hustle, you got to want it. So the fastest way to scale, and if you're watching this, take note of this. This is what I'm doing right now to pick up these 5 units. And this, I don't think I've seen this approach done. I've seen Sonder, I've seen Lyric, I've seen Say Alfred. These companies have just leased entire floors of apartment complexes, high rises. They've gone in markets and they've just picked up all of the vacancy. They've partnered with real estate developers. They've done a ton of very creative things, which I think anyone can use and look at that as a model of what you can do. But what I'm talking about here is finding a multifamily home. Let's say it has 6 units. Let's say it has 10 units. Whatever it may be, find a multifamily home that isn't necessarily a high-rise apartment and it's not a single-family home. This approach has proven to be the most profitable for me, and the multifamily that I'm renting right now is definitely the craziest as far as profit margins and the ease of maintaining a multifamily rental arbitrage operation is incredible. It's very effortless because all 3 units, in my case, I have 3 units, so all 3 of my units are right there under one roof, and that makes the systemizing of this very easy and effortless. Really, you can stock up on supplies and everything is right there on site. You don't need to go anywhere to maybe reach out and grab extra linens or whatever it may be. There's certain things like towels, everything. You have everything in stock at this property in one of the closets or whatever you want to do, however you want to set it up. And the cleaners, which is a very important part of systemizing this business. At first I spent a year cleaning myself. I told you guys at the beginning of this live stream that I was the one involved with just learning and doing everything required for me to learn the ropes of this business. And so I spent an entire year cleaning. Now, looking at it from a business approach, I know some people would say you should have been outsourcing from the beginning just to get your experience with outsourcing things and hiring people and working with other people. Not necessarily hiring, but just like partnering with people and like independent contractors. But what I've learned through the entire, on the positive note of that, is I learned how I want my properties clean. I learned the quality that the guests like. One thing that I've always had in reviews from when I cleaned was the place is extra clean. It was sparkling clean. And this is now something I can pass over to, let's say, an independent contractor who's cleaning, as a living or as a side hustle. I can show them that level of quality required to build a solid system, because cleaning is the most important aspect of this whole thing. You can have all the leases, you can have all the units, but if you don't have people you trust that you can depend on to go into your properties and do a great job, the same tier of quality that you would expect, you might not really get far with this. And I'm very grateful to have come across a very solid group of cleaners. Now, I've done this through an app called Thumbtack. So if you guys ever want to find maybe an odds and ends job done for you, you can download this app called Thumbtack, and it's professionals for hire. It's been amazing so far. The two cleaners that I work with from that app are extraordinary. They've done a great job, and it's just a great piece of information to have if you're at a point where you want to systemize. So, going back to this whole thing, it's systemizing a multifamily home. And I think this is the fastest way to scale and the lowest cost way to scale, because most of the time these multifamily homes, the rents aren't that expensive, because maybe like it's not that big of a space or whatever it may be. It's just it's a pocket that I haven't seen talked about very often or very much at all. And I think this is what I'm going to play on. And as I said before, I have 3 multifamily home rental arbitrage units. And at this point, this property is a boutique hotel. I mean, this property is fitted and it's furnished just like a hotel would be. Like, the check-in is automated. I have a solid group of people that I trust to go in there and clean it. I work with a property management company who look like I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, this is probably important. Maybe it's one of my guests. Hello, this is Robert speaking.
Is this the Airbnb company?
Yes. Yes. Are you at in Kansas City? Okay, so there's a lockbox. There's a fence on, I guess, facing the street in the front of the property, and there's a lockbox. It says Sleep 101 in stickers underneath it. It's a little black lockbox. You have the check-in instructions actually in your reservation details. Okay, so yeah, you enter the code. You should have the code in your reservation details if you want to go to your email. It'll give you all the information, and you'll have a key and a key fob, and you'll just be able to access the unit that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a great day. Bye. Well, guys, sorry. That is part of what I do. That was a guest calling about the check-in instructions. So it happens sometimes if they're new users to the platform, they don't necessarily know how to work it, and then I get phone calls. Just part of what I have to do in this phase. Obviously, if I grow big enough, this can be something that I can outsource and hire somebody to do, like customer communications. But let's just get back to what I was saying. The fastest way to scale is by leasing multifamily units, and you can easily negotiate months off of the rent, and you have a system that is very, I guess, it's less of a headache, because multifamily homes, they're already managed like apartments are. So if it's a multifamily home, the property management company or the landlord will already be taking care of the lawn service or just certain things like that. There's certain expenses that you don't have to deal with. And with a single family home, when you rent it, you're expected to take care of the lawn. You're expected to do certain things, take care of all the utilities. There's just a lot more cost, and I guess the amount of money that it costs you per month is a lot higher for single family homes or nicer apartments. And in this case, the multifamily home is the best investment thus far, because it's the lowest cost and highest producing in the portfolio. So 3 of these units, there's a studio, there's a 1-bedroom, and there's a 2-bedroom. And they're the best performing units that I currently have under my management. And that gave me the notion to continue scaling with these multifamilies. So as I said before, June 15th, I'm signing 5 more leases, and this is in a 7-plex. So there is a really nice renovated multifamily home in Springfield. Great part of town. It's in between the 2 downtown areas we have here. So we have like an older downtown that's smaller, and then we have like the big downtown, and it's situated right between these two. It's by Cox School of Nursing, so it's like a nursing school as well as like a hospital. This location cannot be any better, and there's 7 units here, newly renovated. They reframed the entire property. It's beautiful. I will be showing you more about this property on my YouTube channel if you guys want to like stay tuned and just learn a lot from what I'm doing. But the best thing about this is that I now will have 5 of these 7 units on lock. So I'm leasing 5. I've already negotiated. I've discussed with the property management company. They're totally willing to let us do what we're doing. Right, we're the A+ tenant. When you do this, you are the A+ tenant because you're definitely in a position where you provide a lot more value to whoever it owns the property because you're taking care of it. You're making sure it's maintained. You're making sure it's clean. You're constantly on top of little things like if there's a leak or if there are certain things that pop up. You're on top of that because if not, that hurts your business, and you can't let it hurt your business. So the 5 units I'm really excited about, and this is what I really want to get to, is that when you have this angle and this approach that maybe hasn't been thought of, you will definitely be able to scale a lot quicker. It's very exciting for me, and I hope every single one of you watching this are able to I guess do something with this information that you're getting. So maybe you've never thought of renting a multifamily home or renting multiple units from a multifamily home. Now, in this process, you're going to have to put some money down for furniture. And, most of you who are looking to get into this, you can do this in various different ways. I've made videos on my channel where I bought everything off of Amazon. And I've also done this where I've gone in and gone through Craigslist and furnished a unit in Kansas City, the one that I just got a phone call about. I got this unit furnished for $2,400, and that just blows my mind. It's like a really nice unit. Everything I found like an $800 couch for $100, that type of thing. You're just reducing your costs so much, and I like this angle a lot, and I think I will continue to try to find like the best way to make the logistics work, to go through and find furniture off the Facebook Marketplace or furniture off of Craigslist, because the Amazon approach is kind of expensive. It could run up a lot, and all those little transactions add up when you're just adding to cart in Amazon. But at the end of the day, if you can find a multifamily, then you are in a position that is unique, and you're in a position that will probably get you farther than going around and pitching one single family homeowner, because what you're doing now is you're locking in 3 units with 1 meeting. That just makes a lot more sense to me. You're walking in and you don't have to spend a lot of time convincing all these random people, let me Airbnb your space, because you walk in, you do the deal, and the way this works is those 3 units now led into this new opportunity with these 5 units that just popped up. I texted this guy, I was like, hey, everything's going well with your properties. Through the pandemic, we've kind of just been keeping in touch, and we've let him know that we had to reduce our rates a lot, and we've had flexible rent payments. We didn't necessarily have to pay on the first. He waived all the late fees for us and all that. And I think a lot of apartments and a lot of renters got that opportunity as well, got this whole thing. But so I just hit him up. I texted him. I was like, yo, what else do you have in the pipeline right now? And he managed about 150 properties. He's a property manager, and we have built a solid relationship with him. And he hits me up. He's like, hey, come tour this place. And then I did, and it just blew my mind how nice it was. It's by far, I think these will be the nicest quality properties in the portfolio because of how renovated. This renovation started in 2014, and like I said, it's this huge building. They reframed the entire thing. They just did an exterior renovation, did an interior renovation, and I'm very excited about it, and I will be sharing more about this with you all here. But what I want to get to is, kind of what I was saying earlier. One meeting and one negotiation gets you more units. Now, if you have a faster way to scale, and if you can think of a faster way to scale at low cost, I guess like a low cost approach, then let me know in the chat. This is by far the best approach that I've come across. And in my time as an Airbnb host, I've done it all. I've leased apartments, I've leased multifamily, I've leased single family homes. I've leased in downtown markets, in high-rise downtown markets. And this is by far my favorite approach because of how quickly you can scale. I think that pretty much sums it up. Through the pandemic, I was able to survive by providing a combination to travel nurses. And, I'm in a market where there are 2 major hospitals. I think this is the biggest, industry in Springfield are hospitals. So that really saved me. Other hosts like in LA, they don't have, they can't say that they've had that great of results through the pandemic because, first of all, it's illegal there, and there's all these obstacles that come up, and then throw a pandemic in the mix, and then you have a very bad situation. So I know a lot of my subscribers in LA had to, cancel all their leases. They had to terminate leases in their portfolios. One thing I want to get at as well is when you're doing this, you want to have a property that doesn't have issues. Like, for example, from my experience, I've dealt with older properties that have like plumbing issues. They have certain issues that come up outside of just like the managing of the logistics of the business. You have to worry about certain things. And, I'm going to go through an example here that I recently went through. I experienced this within the last month. I actually ended the lease. I broke the lease on one of my properties because it wasn't being maintained up to standard. For example, the shower knobs wouldn't work. This is a basic function that you need when you're providing somebody a place to sleep. All they need is a place to sleep and a place to shower, and that's about it. Like, that's why they're staying the night. And when the guest can't shower properly, that causes a lot of problems. So whenever you are touring properties, whenever you're looking for these properties to Airbnb, make sure that there will not be any issues, any problems with certain things like functional issues that can come up. So I guess have a protocol, have a checklist of what looks good to you. Obviously when you tour a place, you can sense if this is going to be a quality space that you'd want to provide to your guests and to your clients. I kind of went against my instinct when I leased this property because it was older and there was a very light surface renovation done to it. And clearly whoever did it, like the contractors, they just rushed the job. They didn't spend a lot of time paying attention to detail. It was a very sloppy job. And, the guests can sense that. And the reviews for this property tanked. Over time, I had to cut my loss with this because the review ratings dropped really low. And if a guest doesn't have hot water, and if a guest has like a leak under the sink that they have to deal with when they're booking your place, it's going to be a very bad ordeal. So learn from my mistakes. Learn from, I have not talked about this. This happened just recently. But learn from my mistakes and don't lease properties that will have issues or that will have things that can arise that guests can complain about. Because what happens is if you have a big portfolio and a guest complains and a guest leaves a bad review, that affects your entire rating. So overall, make sure you're very diligent. Make sure that you're doing the best you can in doing market research. First of all, it's a very important component to all this. And it's definitely helped me stay afloat through the pandemic. And make sure that your property is a quality space that the guests can feel comfortable and safe and at home in. This ultimately is all you need. Aside from just certain little things, I don't know, you guys really haven't asked any questions in this chat, but as far as information that you guys are looking for and you guys are wanting, I'm more than happy to answer some questions. I've kind of gone through how I survived the pandemic and what my approach to the fastest way to scale is. It's leasing multiple units from a multifamily home. I also know that there's a raffle for a $100, I think, Amazon card. Oscar Casuto, if you are in this live right now, you were selected by a random raffle. You will be getting this $100 gift card, I believe. If you want to reach out to Better Than Passive on Facebook, they will get you taken care of in that sense. Once again, Oscar Casuto. If you are in this live stream, then I guess leave a comment. Hey, I won. Congrats! you're a little bit richer now. You can spend that money however you'd like. And please send your email to Better Than Passive on Facebook, and we'll get you taken care of. To wrap it up, I want you guys to ask me questions. There's 13 viewers in this chat right now. There's not very many, but I want you guys to ask some questions like, what are you struggling with as far as getting involved, or what is it that you are waiting for information-wise that is holding you back from making that leap or taking that initial step? Because once you do, everything gets a lot easier for you. Once you make that long-term commitment to a lease, you're committed, you have a sense of, responsibility, and you're held accountable to your decision. So make sure that you do the proper steps and you do everything in your power to make sure that it's a good deal and a good investment. But once you're in, the short-term rental space is by far one of the most lucrative things that I've ever been involved with, simply because of the high demand there is for accommodation and hospitality. With that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this live stream, and I don't see any questions. So, I hope this was of value to you. And I've gone through some of my personal experiences. I've gone through a lot of things I've dealt with. Okay, look, we have some questions. So what is the best way to check if the city you are in allows you to post a property on Airbnb? So this is easily done with a quick Google search. You simply look up short-term rental regulations in X, whatever city that you're in. You'll be able to find a lot of information because this is a heavily documented, like a heavily followed topic. It's very controversial. There's a lot of cities that don't allow it. And what I suggest is you just Google short-term regulations in Nashville, short-term rental regulations in blank, whatever city that it is that you want to get started in, and you should be able to find a lot of articles, a lot of information on what exactly the steps are and if it's allowed. It's pretty simple, and going through the processes is going to vary from city to city. Every city has dealt with this differently, from my experience. So the best locations are going to be, I would say, that's a very interesting question to ask, because if you look at the hotel industry, they've spent a lot of money on research and development, on R&D. They've spent millions of dollars on market research. And if you can see it, the way I look at it is if there's a market where there's a hotel, and there could be just one hotel in this market. But if there's a market where there's a hotel, somebody invested millions of dollars into that location, knowing that they would get foot traffic, knowing that there would be people traveling to that location. So that automatically saves you a lot of headache, and you can go in and, there's certain markets where, there's a convention center, so there's obviously going to be a Marriott right across the street, that type of thing. But I think the demand is so high that really try it. And the way that I like to think about it, the best location is the location where your costs are going to be the lowest. Wherever you're going to have the lowest rent and expenses, that is going to be your best option, because you can then forever, as long as you're in that market with that low rate, that low long-term rent, you can then turn a profit on the nights. And if there's not very many listings in your area, that's also another great location and another great thing to look at. Let's say there's 40 listings in your city. I know this, depending on where you're at, this may apply to you, but if there's a market where there's not very many Airbnbs, you can get in there and then you're immediately scooping up the market share. Okay, so Stephanie James asked, hello, I have 2 properties in the suburbs of Chicago. Not extremely profitable. I'm not sure what area in Chicago would be the most profitable. So Chicago is a crazy market because there's thousands of short-term rental listings. I would really, in that case, I personally have not experienced a market like Chicago. My biggest market is Kansas City. So the population is 3 million, I think 4 million in the greater Kansas City area. I know Chicago is much, much bigger than that. And I guess depending on where you're at, if you are looking to relocate, maybe these properties aren't making sense for you. Maybe that it's not something that you want to continue spending money into and kind of pouring money down the drain if you're losing money. Profitable markets in Chicago, I would say, would be, and you're in the suburbs, I would say in the downtown area. But then again, this pandemic changed a lot of the outlook that I had. Like a lot of the market research that I was doing, my approach to bigger cities that are based around a lot of, I guess, events and organized events and sports events and convention centers, that type of thing. Like most of these things have been canceled I mean, all of these events have been canceled, so it's really a tough question to answer. I would really mess with your rates a lot though, and be actively managing your rates for more engagement on your listing. I've noticed that when the days go by and I don't fluctuate the prices consistently, then I don't get as many bookings. For example, today we got 3 bookings just because I simply was fluctuating the price a few dollars at a time. So in the sense that, what location would be more profitable, I would first try to work at little things inside your business that you currently have right now with your 2 properties, and adjust the prices, be active, see if you can make those more profitable than they already are. You said that they're not very profitable, so I would assume that you're making a little bit of profit. Hopefully this answers your question, and this is what I do, and it's definitely helped me get a lot more engagement, get a lot more inquiries, get a lot more bookings in general. And as far as profitable locations in Chicago, I've not done market research there. I've done market research for a lot of my students, and I've done a market research for a lot of people in different markets, but Chicago has not been one of them. And I would just say simply look at how you can increase your bookings and maximize profits for what you already have. Okay, guys, we're wrapping it up here. We're at 46 minutes in. I hope I went through and answered a lot of your questions. More questions, it's great. So does it matter on the number of bedrooms as far as demand? This does matter. So let's say you're in a market where you have the majority of the units and the listings in your market are 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. You going ahead and jumping on board and getting a 2-bedroom, 1-bath would then put you in the mix with all these other accounts and all these other listings. But if you go ahead and get a 1-bedroom or a studio, this would then increase your chance of getting booked, because there's not anyone supplying a 1-bed or a studio, but you are, and therefore you're picking up that market share. Once again, you will always have a demand there because of the amount of people I need to sleep. And definitely look into that. There's a tool that I use called B&B Investor, and it shows you how many units or 2 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms there are in a market. And I use this a lot to do market research, and it's been very helpful for me. Did you work with someone to make sure you cover all the important things in your lease agreement, or did you have that template to work on, or do you have a video on YouTube channel? Okay, so he's asking about my lease agreement. Yes, I had a real estate attorney draft the one I have for single family homes, and I also have this. This came up recently when I was in Kansas City. I have a corporate housing lease agreement. This is a very interesting take, and I've not talked to anyone about this. I've not even released any content about this yet, but there's 2 approaches with this. You can approach single family homeowners and you can pitch them like, hey, let me Airbnb your space. And in that case, all you need is a written agreement between you and the homeowner. I had a real estate attorney draft that up for me. And then in this case, I was actually presenting the idea to apartments in various cities around Kansas City. And the apartment sent me a corporate lease contract. Like this was, they have their corporate leases. It's a completely different lease than a residential lease, and they have the residential leases. So they actually sent me their their contract, and I want to share this with you all here. I mean, I know that this is going to be very helpful for a lot of people. The reason being is because I walked into a high-rise in downtown Kansas City with this corporate lease that they had provided us. We just switched out all the information to be for my company and everything like that, and we signed 3 units in Kansas City. But unfortunately, we had to back out of them because their leases were too high. And this was the same week that Trump announced travel ban. So I signed three units in 1 week, and then I backed out of 3 units the same week. And that's just something that happened, and it's part of this whole process. But you definitely want to have somebody who knows what they're doing draft these up for you. In one of the cases, I had the actual landlord of the property draft up the agreement himself. I don't know how we did that. There's certain websites that you can use to draft agreements and real estate contracts. So yeah, just do it in a way that is professionally done, and you don't just want to write a few sentences like, yes, I can Airbnb this space. Okay, Narkur, or I hope I'm not butchering your name. Where are you looking to expand next? For now, I have an email full of negotiations I've already done in Kansas City. So I was there prior to COVID, really putting in the work. I spent 2 months there, every day getting after it, trying to find and build relationships and establish a foothold in Kansas City. And I said it, like I said before, I backed out of those 3 units in Kansas City. So I still have deals that I have in emails in Kansas City. I think I have like 6 that I can move forward with as soon as I'm ready. Clearly, this whole pandemic it's been very stressful for everybody, and I don't necessarily want to be dumping money into a market like right now. Kansas City is not very profitable because all the events based around that downtown area are canceled. All the convention centers, there's a lot of things that have been put on hold or postponed. So Kansas City will probably be my next market once I'm done setting up these 5 units in Springfield. I'm happy to have Springfield on lock. I know I control the market here. I definitely stand out compared to most of the units. I have a very professional and a very, strategic approach to doing what I do, whereas everyone else here, they're probably, not looking at this as seriously as I am. So Kansas City next, and then from there, I would love to do Honolulu. This is just like a whim, like a dream. But doing rental arbitrage in Honolulu, that'd be so cool because I can, be on an island, and I know that Honolulu is a very great market for this. From my understanding, it's probably one of the most profitable markets, and that would be dope. I think that would be insanely cool to just be there doing this, and then hitting the beach for like a little surf sesh after my long days of work. So what is that software called? B&B Vestor. So just B&B Vestor. It's the way that I kind of found a loophole. You can use it for free. They also have a paid version. I've never paid for it. I've gotten all the information. I've extracted all the information out of that for free. Insanely valuable software. Don't necessarily look at the numbers as 100% accurate projections, but it definitely helps when it comes down to finding locations that make sense. So where are you able to find the best? Okay. Yeah, where are you able to find the best number of bedrooms to rent in various different areas you mentioned on the website? I would have to look at it. I haven't looked at it in a while, but there's a way to toggle that, I'm sure. And look into that, and AirDNA does the same thing. If you've ever used AirDNA, they also have a section where you're able to look into how many 1-bedrooms are in a market and how many 2-bedrooms are, etc. Okay, we're getting close to 1 hour. I hope I've answered all of your questions. I hope you guys are motivated to get out there and crush 2020, even though it has been a hard year for a lot of people. Go out there. I've been able to maintain revenue and profits through this entire time. Massive positive affirmation for me, massive positive, momentum moving forward. You guys are awesome. Thank you for tuning in. And once again, Oscar Casuto, you won the raffle. You're welcome, guys. If you enjoyed this, then be sure to, follow Better Than Passive on YouTube, subscribe to them, whatever. They're great. They're a great group of people. We plan on doing a live speaking event maybe later on this year or in the beginning of 2021. So stay tuned for that. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and